everybody. Welcome back to Psychedelics Weekly. Joe Moore here, joined by Kyle Buller. How are you doing today, Kyle?
Not too bad. I went on a long hike earlier, so it feels like my toes are going to fall off. But other than that, going well. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good. A couple rest days in a row, so my legs are starting to feel functional again. So nice. Really digging that. So, before we jump in, just a couple things. We've got Convergence coming up, our first ever conference, March 30 through April 2. Check that out at Psychedelics Today. Kyle, can you tell us a little bit about Vital?
Yeah, so our Vital applications are now open. If you want to learn more, you can check that out at vitalpsychedelictraining.com. But the quick overview is that, we are relaunching our 12-month training program. It's online, so we meet on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern to 4 p.m. Eastern with a guest lecturer to present, and then we have our breakout groups. So then we'll break off into smaller little home groups, and you'll have 2 instructors there. And then we also have the experiential component as well, so in-person retreat, doing breath work. We're excited. This year has been awesome, and I think a real focus on building community with Vital as well. So if you want to take a deep dive into psychedelic training, and it's a certificate in psychedelic therapy and integration. If you want to take the dive, check that out, vitalpsychedelictraining.com.
And if people do a deposit early, they get to join our kind of book club, and we're doing Way of the Psychonaut. Is that right?
Yeah, Way of the Psychonaut will be reading Stan Grof's book. Pick that one just because it's Stan Grof, and it's also on Audible as well, so I thought it would make it a little accessible to folks that want to listen. And that will kick off in beginning of February, and will run to the start of the program, which kicks off on Monday. That's April 17th. We'll have an introduction call, and then we'll have our first real lecture class on April 18th. And applications... we're taking applications to, I think, the end of February. But if you want to get into the book club and join kind of like the little pre-class, get everything in earlier. And deposits will need to be in by end of January to secure your spot there.
Right on. So great. And another really cool offering we have is probably the most amazing online course on microdosing to date. Developed by Adam Bramlage and Jim Fadiman. Got some really great masterclasses in there with some amazing researchers. Got some really interesting evidence from anthropological research and history. So really interesting stuff. And if microdosing feels accessible and maybe a good way to get started, check that out. A lot of really good safety stuff in there as well. So that is available at psychedeliceducationcenter.com. And hope you all check that out. And finally, our friends over at MAPS are putting on a conference in Denver this June. So join MAPS and the global psychedelic community for the 4th Psychedelic Science Conference on June 19 through 2023 at the Colorado Convention Center in Denver. As a media partner for the conference, Psychedelics Today is offering a special discount to listeners. You can use PT's promo code, PT15, at checkout for 15% off of your registration. Their super advanced pricing ends on December 30. So visit psychedelicscience.org to register. And there is a chance we're doing an after party. We haven't really totally fleshed out our situation at MAPS Denver yet, but it's going to be interesting regardless. And we'll have a big table there interviewing folks for our show and a bunch of the big speakers as well. So excited about that. Love that it's a hometown event for me.
Yeah, you don't need to travel or go over to Oakland. The MAPS conference is fun. Probably the biggest and best conference I've been to in the psychedelic landscape.
We're going to try to give them a run for their money at Convergence, but we'll still be at this one. So it's going to be a lot of really serious clinical presentations, some good culture presentations, and it's always a good time. So try to make it if you can. So... let's dig in. I think the first topic we have here is this really fun article about cytokines and stress and cortisol. Title of the article is Psilocybin Induces Acute and Persisting Alterations in Immune Status and the Stress Response in Healthy Volunteers. So lead author here is Natasha L. Mason. And I was tipped off to this by the Maastricht Pharmacology or Psychopharm department's Twitter, which if people aren't following that, they probably should. This Twitter thread was so funny. It was
yeah.
they put in like Cylons and like kind of crazy DMT art and Spider-Man, the hormone monster, all sorts of funny stuff. But they're at the same time doing a really great summary of the article. And this is preprint, right? This is not no peer review yet, but they're on track. Jan Remakers is a sub-author here, and there was some funding from Beckley. But I'll run through the kind of summary here. So, long and short, what they found is cortisol levels did spike quite a bit after initial dosing with psilocybin intramuscularly, I believe. Or I forget if it was IV or IM. But they saw a sharp increase in cortisol levels, and it kind of faded off after the peak at 80 minutes. But kind of the long-term stress inoculation was really interesting. So people who weren't in the placebo group that actually got the active dose actually had a much lower response to stressful stimuli. So they were less stressed by whatever the device was that the researchers were using to cause stress. So I find that really interesting. And there was, a lot of really interesting stuff in here about the HPA axis, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, that pretty much is like the precursor for cortisol floods, and some issues with cytokine storms, stuff like that. And it's just a really, really neat study showing that there is substantial immune effect. There is substantial stress response effect. And I would suggest some folks check this one out. This is pretty impressive. 30 total people. I think 50% in the active group, and then 50% in the placebo group.
Yeah, and they're doing some blood tests too, right? So measuring that in their blood, and really fascinating. And didn't they have like a research study way in the past around kind of fear extinction as well with rats? I feel like I remember with Dr. Charles Nichols in Vital, he was kind of going over some of that stuff. But yeah, super interesting to actually see that. There's that stress decrease afterwards.
Right. Yeah, and their follow-ups were 7 days after, so they did studies before, during, and after people under the effect, and found some really good blood markers. So we're getting really good data on what's happening in the blood through this, and I think this stuff could be really helpful in the long run.
I think it kind of validates like that window of opportunity too, right? Like kind of like that afterglow effect to be able
critical
to kinda,
period reopening.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's 7 days it's a pretty good result for a single dosing with any drug, really.
Yeah.
So it's a good one. And yeah, folks should definitely check this out. And again, the Twitter, we'll link to this Twitter feed. It's really fun. And they did a lot of really good stuff here. And Mason, really impressive work. I hope we can get Mason on the show in the future. Looks like some really promising data. So next up, we've got The Economist. Have you ever read The Economist, Kyle, or do you know the magazine?
A little bit, yeah. I don't think I've ever really kind of dug into it.
I started getting into The Economist years ago because Noam Chomsky tipped me off that they were very honest. Whereas, a lot of main newspapers won't really necessarily talk about money explicitly. They're like, oh, this is bad. But it's like, well, no, we have a financial interest at XYZ. This is why we should do it. And they make, arguments from really high level, but they're not trying to conceal anything about their intent. So that's kind of why I really started to dig them. And it's a really global view. And the technology and science section is really great too. So I was really enjoying it when I was reading it all the time. Anyway, they just put out a video of the top 5 things to look out for in 2023. And psychedelics were one of them. Yeah, so they said, it's probably coming and a trend you should really watch. And they cited the MAPS results. 67% of folks no longer scoring is having PTSD. There was a mention, but they didn't actually say any company or group doing it. Mushrooms and psilocybin for treatment-resistant depression. And I think the figure they cited there, no real citations, but 1 in 5 of these patients were in remission from treatment-resistant depression. And then they actually highlighted Awaken. Ben Sessa's attached to this group, and they're doing some really interesting work with ketamine for alcohol use disorder and getting really aggressively good results. And then one final point, there was a talking head in there, I forget where she was from organization-wise, and saying that people should really just be careful around the hype and make sure expectations are set properly, because there is a lot of conversation. And, we just did this with Dennis yesterday with Micropreneur. But yeah, we don't want to set expectations incorrectly and therefore kind of harm folks. So we've got to be really careful there.
Yeah. I know we were chatting about that yesterday. That was the one thing that I was bringing up just around that hype. How do as things are entering into the mainstream here, it's kind of interesting to see more of these mainstream type of organizations pick up on psychedelics and kind of develop content around it. It feels like it's really kind of picking up steam, and makes me wonder, where are things going to be in 5 years?
It's an acceleration that I don't think we can understand or predict at this point. There's so many people have come to the party and are trying to figure it out. I keep seeing, one of our favorite songs, the Shroom Boom. Kidding. Not our favorite song. But, this is what people are calling it, the Shroom Boom. And people are just flocking to this industry. And we're going to see so much transformation that I don't know if we're going to recognize it at large. I think certain scenes are going to be fine and lesser impacted, right? But I guess, if you look at the early 90s Grateful Dead scene versus what it is today, it's very different. So,
do you think some people will be disappointed, especially those in
100%.
Finance and throwing lots of money at it, thinking that it's going to be the next next $1 billion industry?
Right. I think there are going to be some investors that are very disappointed with their returns. We already are seeing that. If you're watching what's happening with Midocin or a number of other groups, it's just a landslide. And it's tough, right? People thought they were going to get good returns, but this is a biotech play that takes a long time to see any real revenue. If your whole business model is contingent on raising more money to get to the next thing, how are you going to really convince the public markets that it's a good idea, especially over time? I don't know. With compelling clinical data is really the answer if you're a public company. But these things are really long plays, and if people are trying to invest, you just have to be ready to hold on and take a lot of risk. Biotech is inherently risky.
Yeah. I think that's a good reminder for those that are kind of putting their money in psychedelics and investing. It's a long-term play, right? I don't think it's going to be, these short, quick wins. I think if you really feel that drive and purpose of working in this, it's going to be kind of a longer-term play. And we have to, work with the hype a little bit. And how do we, balance that out? Which, I feel like we've always tried to do that. I mean, even though, we are bullish on psychedelics and non-ordinary experiences, also just trying to balance the hype a little bit. So, yeah, just carefully managing expectations around
right, and be honest
reality.
About the risks. Yeah, so definitely something to really track. If we've been on just about every TV station, the psychedelic topic, but just about the top 30 newspapers, probably worldwide, and magazines, probably have had articles Better Housekeeping, from the Economist to Better Housekeeping, from Nature to Scientific American. We've been on a lot. So we're doing well. It's progress for sure. At least folks are having this conversation, and this conversation needs to be taken out of the shadows. It's
totally
nice that you have your little club, but we've got to make it a bigger conversation.
Yeah, and just thinking about the communities that something like the Economist is going to reach and open up eyes. I think that was something else we were chatting about yesterday. Just really surprised in who is picking up interest in psychedelics all of a sudden, and being kind of really shocked about oh whoa, this 56-year-old conservative person that I never would think that would ever want to talk about mushrooms is like really interested in microdosing all of a sudden. And so, I think that's going to help to really kind of shift some of the stigma around things. It's when other people are getting on board and kind of also breaking out of our little like echo chambers at times.
Yeah, absolutely. So next up, this is a big one. And this is not psychedelic specific, but I think it's really important. So this is the first time I've seen a state level medical association publicly support and very loudly all drug decrim, starting at the state level. So the Minnesota Medical Association is endorsing broad drug decriminalization and expungements for low-level possession and the promotion of a statewide harm reduction program. So this is big.
Yeah.
The vote was really, really impressive. If you look at the article, it was like 200 something to 8, I think was the figure, is what the association voted on. 219 to 34.
Yep.
Yeah.
And this is on Marijuana Moment for folks.
Yeah. Kyle Yeager wrote this one. Came out 2 days ago, so it came out on December 26th. But this is a big deal. That doctors are saying, oh, look, we're actually not sure that people should be put in jail. Like, we don't know clearly what is the best way to get overall good human health better. Mm-hmm. Should we be incarcerating people? In my opinion, the answer is very much no. But the medical association is saying clearly the data doesn't support what we're doing criminally, like with criminal offenses here. So maybe we should pump the brakes. And they actually gave a really good nod to Portugal, suggesting they want to actually implement a system similar to Portugal where there's tribunals, I don't know if that's the right word, councils that you would go in front of to see if you want treatment. Are you ready for treatment? Do you want treatment? Great. Cool. We'll get it to you. Not ready yet? All right. Great. Here's some here's some naloxone to keep yourself safe. That could be the move. Yeah. Have you seen some stuff like this? Probably not much conversation in New Jersey about this kind of thing.
No, especially not from a medical association. And so I thought that was like a big win that medical association is kind of getting behind drug decriminalization. But it also makes sense too, right? Like if you probably work in that field, you probably want people to get more help, right? Instead of just like incarcerating people. And, here they were really saying, they were really urging people to increase investments in statewide harm reduction and medication for opioid use disorder programs. So, I'm sure that's like really behind a lot of stuff, just thinking about like the, all the overdose deaths that's been happening and probably seeing that. It's like, yeah, something's not working here, right? Like we need to shift the policy and take a new approach with all this. How many, again, like more lives could we save if we like think about drug policy a little bit different than just trying to make it illegal and lock people up? Like how do we say things are happening? How do we get people the help that they need? Yeah, I know it's such a touchy subject for a lot of people, but it's cool to see a medical association back this. But in New Jersey, the Senate president did submit a proposal, and I don't know where it is. I keep checking on it. I haven't seen any movement with it, but they submitted something along the lines of Oregon's bill. For psilocybin. I don't know if it will pass or get through, but similar to Oregon, and I believe they also threw in home growing for psilocybin into that proposal. But I think this guy is kind of bullish. I mean, during the cannabis legalization and decriminalization bill, they tried to sneak in decriminalizing psilocybin, and I think somebody caught it last minute. But they which actually had an impact. I mean, it wasn't like full decriminalization, but they ended up separating that out of the main bill and created its own bill, and they reduced possession of an ounce of psilocybin from a felony to a misdemeanor. And so, that's a good step, but I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if Jersey does anything interesting. I know the opioid epidemic definitely hit Jersey hard, just in a lot of different places. I don't know if they are looking at something similar here, but I don't know. Love to see more states and kind of medical associations get around decriminalization and thinking about like other policies.
Right. It's a big deal. So I want to read this before we jump to the next one. So, quote from the article, criminal penalties for simple possession yield one potential benefit to population health in its claimed ability to deter drug use. However, there is insufficient evidence to support this claim. It says, criminal penalties for simple possession yield numerous real harms to population health. These harms include, but are not limited to, arrests, convictions, incarcerations, criminal records, and diverted public investment. It's a big deal. Accordingly, the MMA, the Minnesota Medical Association, concludes that criminal penalties for simple possession in Minnesota are unjustified. So really good stuff from the organization there, and I really hope we can just keep making progress. So next up is this article from sfgate.com, so San Francisco magazine. Magic mushrooms would be decriminalized. Let me actually get you the real title. Magic mushrooms would be decriminalized in California under this new bill. This is published on December 19. Beautiful picture of Senator Scott Wiener there. And this is really cool. So Scott Wiener, his bill last year got shot down. It was kind of gutted, right? They were trying to do all sorts of stuff that was very much not in the spirit of the bill. I guess they've done some thinking and are trying to move forward with a decriminalization bill for plant psychedelics. So natural psychedelics that are not molecules like LSD and MDMA, which is kind of a bummer. The previous bill was really robust and had a lot of really good stuff in there.
I think that's where the hang up caught, though. I remember there was a whole discussion around like people being like ketamine, like with the whole thing going on there, and concern around like abuse. So yeah, it sucks that they did cut the synthetics out.
Right. They scale. There's all sorts of really good stuff. So yeah, this quote here from Wiener. Psychedelics have tremendous capacity to help people heal, but right now using them is a criminal offense. These drugs literally save lives and are the most promising treatments we have for PTSD, anxiety, depression, and addiction. I think that's pretty accurate. They are the biggest hope for these new things. Then the counterpoint, the district attorney's office is not very pumped. DA, whenever I say the DA, I always think of Tupac, by the way. Without more evidence that these hallucinogenic drugs are no more dangerous than cannabis, we cannot support legalizing them. Just calling them hallucinogens is kind of like eroding their credibility. The California District Attorneys Association wrote in opposition to the previous version of the bill. Hallucinations can be dangerous to users and bystanders alike, and it is not clear that the benefit of legalizing these drugs outweighs the cost to the common welfare. The bill will face its first committee hearing and legislative vote in the spring after the legislature reconvenes for the 23-24 session in January. So should be an interesting project in the next few months to see what's going to happen in California. But it's kind of obvious that we were going to see tension like that, right, between a senator and district attorneys. I would love to see law enforcement against prohibition start jumping up here and getting loud, so we actually get, the DAs are one thing, but law enforcement's a totally different animal. Like the DAs are just paid to put folks in jail, right?
Right.
Bonuses. Well, I guess police are often too, but it's just promising that this is coming back. Scott Wiener didn't totally fold. I'm a little bummed out that we won't have synthetics, but we'll still have DMT, ayahuasca, iboga, other things in there. So yeah, there is hope.
It's interesting, like you'd think since California was like so pivotal in like cannabis reform in those early years, it's like we're seeing like Oregon and Colorado kind of get ahead on this, and this bill stalled out a few years ago, and now it's kind of been like redone just to include like all those just plant medicines. But I guess that makes sense. I think there's still a lot of stigma around especially LSD, right? I think like America is just like kind of traumatized by what happened in the 60s, and I think a lot of people from that generation possibly still hold on to some of that stuff. But again, I guess it's like a good first step, right? Decriminalization and just allowing people to be able to use this. It's not ideal, but it's a win if it does get through.
We want everything, and we want it now, but we have to deal with other people who don't want everything that we want. And this is a path towards that, and I'm hopeful we can definitely see some good progress here. I just really hope this does go through. It's a start. I didn't see anything in here about possession limits.
No, it just said it would remove criminal penalties for personal possession or the use of small amounts. So, it still prohibits sales. It would just kind of be decriminalized, and nothing on like the legal front. So no sales, no dispensaries. But yeah, you're right. It doesn't say anything about possession limits.
So what the bill last year had going for it was legal manufacture, possession, and transfer of pretty high limit amounts of all of these things. So you could, and we haven't read the bill obviously yet, so we'll have to check that out soon so we can comment further and probably get some folks on here to talk about it. But obviously having some things decriminalized is better than having nothing decriminalized, but still a bummer. But
small local adjustments, as Bucky Fuller says.
Yeah, exactly. That's why we're here. And California, I think, is still the 7th largest economy in the world. So it sets a really good global example at the very least. And then others can try to compete with California, right? Having better laws worldwide. This is a thing, I think. Yeah. What's interesting here too is that we've kind of exported our war on drugs through some sort of UN convention. So there's a treaty, CSA, Controlled Substance Act, maybe. I forget exactly what it's called at the UN level, but effectively everybody's obligated to keep these things criminalized based on the signing of that treaty. So even the United States, who proposed this, is having traction inside the United States at the state level. So I wonder if globally how this looks is really bad and as if that we're not holding to our treaties, and as a result maybe other people will be willing to break the terms of the treaty that was signed, or motion, or whatever it was.
That would be pretty cool.
We'll get some people with some knowledge in the UN stuff eventually. Got a friend at NYU who we hung out with a bunch at the Vermont conference, who I think has a lot of really great stuff to say about it.
Cool. Yeah, I wonder how they're like viewing some of this stuff, or if it's like even on their table if they're looking at it.
Right. It must be, right? There's people with money definitely lobbying, right? And if you look geographically, UN. No, that's the Hague is for the International Criminal Court. I guess the UN's HQ'd somewhere in Switzerland is my guess. And people would be able to drive or fly like an hour or two from Germany, where Thai has some HQ, and they're probably lobbying some of these folks, like at least thinking about what that looks like at the international level. So, it's hopeful. It's a little scary that Thai's the one doing it, but all good. Somebody's got to do it. And let's hope people are starting to notice at WHO and the UN that stuff really needs to start changing. We're actually harming people by not allowing them access to psychedelics, and also just the drug war generally. So,
Yeah,
progress.
I know there's been some Instagram posts and like awareness being raised around some practitioners throughout the world being arrested. Like I know a Czech couple got arrested, or shamans like crossing borders and getting arrested, and it's still a thing. Yeah, we should maybe talk about that when I find all those posts again. But yeah, it just popped in my head as you were talking about that, just around some of the arrests that have been happening with facilitators operating in different countries and transporting ayahuasca and stuff across borders. That it's still very, very, very much illegal. Even though we believe like it should be a human right to heal and have ceremony, but the countries and states do not always believe in that.
I saw a thing in the ICEER's Instagram this morning about a woman facing 40 years for ayahuasca possession, and through ICEER's supporting her attorneys, they're able to get it down to 1 year of probation, which is incredible.
Wow.
Right?
That is amazing.
So, there are groups out there doing really good legal defense work like ICEER. So let's just hope we can do more. Yeah. Cool. Anything else going on? Have you had any interesting things pop up lately?
No, I don't think so. I guess we're kind of just getting through the holiday rush, and then I'm starting to prep for another road trip type of thing. I'll be on the road for probably 2 months, kind of. So it's just kind of crazy to think about. So I think I'm just focused on what do I need to do to get prepared for being away for a while.
Yeah, and I've been teaching navigating psychedelics. That's been going really well. Had a really great class with Ito Cohen last night, doing some stuff on integration. I regularly forget how bright he is.
Ito's amazing. He's so smart.
I really appreciate him.
Yeah.
Blessed to have him on the navigating psychedelics team again. We've developed some courses with him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise,
yeah, we did the Shadow series with Ito, and he's been collaborating on a few little things here and there. So he's awesome, brilliant guy. So
yeah, I totally forgot his depth of experience with the Jungian as well. So really cool stuff. And
his whole dissertation was on like Jungian psychology and ayahuasca and integration. So it's like that's really kind of like his specialty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's been fun. Planning so much around Convergence. I'm putting so much time in. It's incredible. But our lineup's going to be killer. Just really pumped on that. And that's probably enough for today's episode. I think we're going to do some more on Colorado really soon. I think we're going to get more going on Oregon soon. Talking about our program that we're launching there sooner than later. I don't know when the state's going to approve us, but probably within a few weeks after we apply. So stay tuned there, Oregonians. Is there anything else? No, Kyle and I are going to finally get some focused time together in February. I'll be at that Psychedelic event together in Miami. That'll be fun.
Psychedelic sounds really fun. Where can people find out more information? Because they also have it's free for the marketplace. People can get a free ticket to hang out in the marketplace. Is that correct?
Right. If you want to go into some talks, I think you got to pay some money, but the marketplace, we'll have a table set up there. And I believe it's free. I think you just give them an email or something and you can come say hi.
I was looking at tickets
at the Miami airport,
and the tickets are pretty cheap compared to most psychedelic conferences.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think it'll be a bit of like a trade show, so that's kind of how they are able to make the tickets pretty affordable. So like lots and lots and lots of sponsors, which is cool. I guess it's a very different experience from like a science conference, right? Where you want to just hear papers and be able to talk to people about the papers. So that'll be a fun one. Psychedelic.com, I believe, is the website. We'll be on stage a bunch, I think. And I think we'll also be giving kind of a seminar on Vital. I'm just trying to explain what we're doing there and why it's different and why it matters. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I'm excited for that. Yeah, so we got some. I have some Vital retreats coming up, and then we'll be at Psychedelic, and then Convergence, and then the MAPS conference, and then Vital kicks off again in April. So, yeah, if anybody's interested in kind of taking a deeper dive with your psychedelic education, just a nice reminder: check out Vital. We have our applications open, and they will close February. So get it in sooner rather than later.
Yeah, we'd love to have you all. All right, cool. Well, I think that's it for now, everybody. Yeah, check out Vital, check out Convergence, and we will see you on the next episode. Thanks for your time, Kyle, and
Thank you, everybody.